Hey everybody, this is David Young with DY Wood Carving, and today we're going to look at how to whittle a little Christmas penguin. Cute little simple project, Christmas penguin, because I don't want you to stop it just because it's the new year. We call it a winter penguin, and you can make a version like that, but just cute little penguin. And so I did last year a video project on the Santa hat, just simple Santa hat. And so this is the exact same style hat, just extended further down onto the penguin. I'd been wanting to try to add it onto something, and this is what we settled with. So we're going to be carving that today out of a piece of 1 by 1 by 3 inch basswood, so 1 inch square, 3 inches tall, and we will go ahead and get started. So, if you've watched some of my tutorials, you're not going to be shocked, but I'm going to start by finding the center line on each side of the block of wood. And I'm just estimating that. You could measure that out if you wanted to, but estimating that, running my knuckle along it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the sides, I'm going to break it up in 1/2 inch intervals. So the way that I do that is I use this nice little triangle square, and I put dots on those spots, and then I mark them across like this. Okay, you can measure that out and draw them out however you want, but basically what I'm doing is I'm going to split the sides up into 1/2 inch intervals, and I've got a piece where I've done that. And so again, splitting vertically in half on each face, and then putting 1/2 inch intervals on each side. Okay. So when I'm looking at it from the front, and I'm carving it on the corner, so this is the front, the sides are broken into 1/2 inch intervals horizontally on the front and the back. Now, before I start carving, I'm going to do one other thing, which is that I want to leave room for the beak to stick out. And so I'm going to define where that beak is going to be on the front of the carving. So the hat is going to be the top half of the carving, and the penguin body is going to be the bottom half, and the beak is just centered right there. So what I'm going to do on the side that's going to be my front is I'm going to split this in half. So on each one of these sections, this one right in the middle is going to be where the hat is. I'm going to go a 1/4 inch down this way. I'm going to go a 1/4 inch up this way. And I'm going to add another horizontal line across the front. So it's a 1/2 inch tall, centered right on, or right between those two other things, but right on the middle of my piece of wood. Okay, so that's going to be right in the center. Okay, and I'm going to remove everything above that beak area and everything below that beak area down to that halfway line. So let's go ahead and get to carving. And today I am using this 1 5/8 inch Flex Cut Pro Series knife. I did the video on those knives not too far back, so I thought I would get that out and use it in a video. I'm going to put a stop cut on the bottom of that beak area and just carve straight up to it so that I'm leaving that there. I'm going to repeat that until I've flattened the area under the beak all the way down to these two vertical center lines on the adjacent faces. Right. So again, if you've seen me do some of these videos, you've seen me do similar things to this. And that's going to give us the top of the beak area, left, right in there. Once I've got it down close to those two center lines on each side, I'm going to flip it around, and it might be a little bit easier to finish it off from the top. Bring it back down and finish that. Okay. Same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to flip it over and do the same thing. Stop cut on the bottom of the beak, carving up to it. Since you just saw me do this, it might be a good time to ask you a question, which is, what is a penguin's favorite type of lettuce? Iceberg, of course. That's an easy one to start us off today. Yeah, doing the same thing on this side, just following up those stop cuts on the bottom side of the beak area until I get that area above it close to flat, at which point it's easier for me to turn it around, go the other direction like this. And take as many steps as you need to do this. Just enjoy the time whittling. It has taken off quite a bit of wood. There we go. All right, so that's the front. On the back, I'm going to flatten the entire thing down the back between those two lines. And again, you've seen me do that kind of thing a lot of times before. So I'm going to do that pretty quickly here. Just going to shave that down in one direction until I get pretty close to those center lines on either side, and go around and go on the other side. So as I'm doing that, do you know why polar bears and penguins don't get along? It's because they're polar opposites. Of course, penguins live at the South Pole, Antarctica. Polar bears live at the North Pole, in the Arctic. So when you see cute pictures of them together, it's not geographically accurate. So you get good jokes and good geography lessons that you can use at your Christmas parties this year. When you're handing out cute little penguins to everybody as gifts. All right, so I got that back side pretty well flattened out, and I've got the front side flattened out except for the beak area. Now, we're going to go ahead and carve the hat there. I do have a separate video again of just carving that standalone hat. You're welcome to go watch that and carve just the hat. It makes a nice little standalone ornament like that. But I will show you how to do the whole thing on this video. I'm going to do that on this side here. And the first thing I'm doing is I'm just going to add a horizontal line there to kind of note the top of my hat. And I should go ahead and do that down here to note the bottom of my hat so I can tell where that is. I don't need it on this side because the beak is there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the top two sections here. I'm going to split them diagonally, that side face from the top down to here. I find that easiest to just kind of mark about what's the center point of that one there. I'm going to go down like this, and I'm going to end up removing this corner here. So I'm going to do that on the corresponding side on the back, kind of mark the center there to help me get it about even, and I'm going to get rid of that triangle there, and it might be helpful for me to mark that across the top, getting rid of this whole triangle here. Okay. On the other side, I'm going to do a similar thing, like I'm going the same angle, except for I'm only going to go halfway up because I want to leave this square here for the pom-pom. Okay. So I'm going to mark halfway across this line here and go up there from the outside. Same thing on the back. But I'm only going to cut up to here, not all the way to the top, so that I can leave space for the pom-pom. Now, I've done a couple different designs of this, and what I'm going to do is at the end of the video, if you want to make one that looks like this, I'm going to show you how to carve just this hat. So right now, we're on the one we're going to carve. I'm going to do this one. At the end, I'll show you how to do this other hat option. If you're interested, you can stick around for that at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that corner that I shaded in on the right side. My right, penguin's left. Just like that. Okay. Then on the other side, I'm going to put a stop cut underneath where that pom-pom is going to go. I'm going to remove that triangle area right under there like that. Okay. So I'm starting to get the shape of my hat there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to taper the corners in on all of the sides. To do that, I'm going to mark the center of the front of the hat right here, and I'm going to draw a line across this front face from there all the way down to the corner where the brim of the hat is, and you'll notice that's about parallel, should be parallel to that line I just carved on the outside. Let me do that from the top here as well. It's going to be helpful for me to also draw a vertical center line on that face I just carved. And I'm going to make the same marking across the back of my hat. Okay, and then what I'm going to be doing is removing these corners around these sides. So I can mark that across the top here, and I'm going to be removing this entire corner so that it's flat between this line and the center line on the side. And again, there's a good chance if you've watched my other videos, you've seen me do this before. I'm going to go ahead and draw those other lines across the top, just because it's going to be kind of helpful reference for me to be able to see them and keep everything symmetric. So I'm removing this whole corner, just straight across the corner, a few cuts until I'm flat between that line on the front and the line on the side. Okay, I'll do that on the back the same way, just like that. Okay, and now it's going to be a little bit awkward on this side because I've got the pom-pom here and I want to keep as much of that as I can. So I'm going to do essentially the same thing, except for I'm going to just kind of like avoid that pom-pom area. So I'm going to be carving up the side here like this, and it's going to just kind of go over that pom-pom area. And it's not going to be quite as far back here. That's okay. So I'm going to do the same thing on the back. So I'm basically trying to follow that pattern line I drew along the back here. Not worrying that my knife is kind of shaving off the edge of the pom-pom area there, but I'm getting kind of that same taper. So this is what it looks like from the top. And I've got that kind of rough shape there. Okay. Great. Next thing I'm going to do is start to separate and define that pom-pom area. So you'll notice I drew this little line across here where those connect together. And I'm just going to extend that straight down the front of the hat here and extend the bottom of that pom-pom area across there. So I've got kind of a square, do that on the back, kind of a square defining where that pom-pom area is going to be. And of course, if I'm going to carve a circle, I always like to start with a square, because then all I have to do is take corners off to get them. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this cut down here to get further in, and then I'm just going to come up on each side, carve those up until I get to the corner of that square, like this. Okay. So if I look at it from the front, it's going to look about like that. Then I'm going to start carving down this line here. There's two ways I'm going to do that. I'll draw this on so you can see. I want to kind of start knocking corners off like this to make a more of a rounded pom-pom shape for that hat, right? So on the bottom, what I'm going to do is kind of a V-cut almost, right along that angle at the bottom of the hat, like that, okay? Then on the top, I'm going to put in a stop cut right where that vertical line is, and then I'm going to carve into it like a V-cut to both sides. Now I'm carving across the grain there to carve that notch in right there. So you got to be a little bit careful. Make sure your knife is nice and sharp and do that. So repeat that on the back side. So I can draw that on again if it's helpful, so you can see that. I'm going to knock that corner off. I'm going to knock this corner off so that I can be defining that shape. To do that, this is almost like a V-cut, just kind of extending that cut up like that, cutting across the bottom corner of the pom-pom, and then on the top of the hat, vertical stop cut, carve into that from both sides to start shaving that down. Okay. At this point now, I can take the rest of this vertical line defining the side of the pom-pom, and I can put a little stop cut along there, and then make a nice little V cut to start separating the side of the pom-pom like that. And I'll do it again on the front. Okay. And now I'm running into issues because of, where this is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to draw or make a hard cut to kind of define where the bottom of that hat is. And I'm just going to define where the bottom of that hat coming across is, like that. Okay. Do the same thing on the other side so that I can kind of separate that out like that. And I'm just kind of extending that line out and up to create that part where the hat is falling down. Okay. Now I'm going to work on, let me just take this little piece out here. I'm going to work on rounding this pom-pom now. So on the outside corners, I'm just going to kind of carve off like that and then flatten that outside like that. So it's starting to round off the outside. Make some more cuts across the top, and I'm really just taking off hard corners, trying to be symmetric on my way around all the way until I've gone across the top. I'm going to extend this stop cut across the top and just make a little bit more of a V cut down into it like that. Okay. And I can do the same thing on the bottom, kind of continuing to round off that pom-pom area until I butt up to here. And so what I want to do is really separate the top of the hat from the pom-pom here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick my knife straight in between where the pom-pom and the end of the hat is there. And then I'm going to undercut that area with the tip of my knife. So I'm taking the tip of my knife, just putting it straight under there. And then I'm going to make a angled cut like this. And if I've made clean cuts, that will pop right out like that. Do it on the other side. And if I've made clean cuts on my undercut and my stop cut, that'll pop right out. And so you can see now I've got that nice separation there between the pom-pom and the top of my hat. Let's repeat that on the front side. So straight in. Don't go too far down with your blade, just straight in and pull it out. Undercut it once like this with the tip. And then I'm going to take this triangle here out. If I repeat those cuts, it should just fall right out. Same thing here. And I can do that. Okay. I've got a little bit of messiness there, just cuts that didn't quite line up. So I'm just going to repeat a couple cuts there and clean this out and make it nice and smooth. Okay. Great. So we got pretty good definition and separation of the pom-pom there. You can spend as much time rounding that off as you want. I like to do it about there so you can still kind of see the facets and everything. Okay. Next thing I want to do is I want to taper the top of this hat so it's narrower towards the top. I'm going to draw a center line across the top of the hat like that. And I'm going to shape the top kind of from this cut where I've made a cross all the way up towards that. I'm not going to go all the way to that line. I'm just going to go, maybe up to about 1/8 of an inch towards that line. Okay, on the bottom side of the hat, I want to taper that too because that hat should be getting narrower as it goes up. So I'm kind of doing that. And that's going to make it look like the hat's getting narrower as it goes into the pom-pom. Let's do the same thing on the back. Just be careful not to hit your knife across your pom-pom and mess that up. I'm going to do that. Same thing back here. I'm going to kind of narrow the bottom part of that hat. And then I want to kind of squeeze this in as it's getting towards the pom-pom because, again, realistically, that hat is going to be getting narrower as it gets in towards the pom-pom. So I'm just going to kind of make some careful cuts there to kind of taper that in. Going against the grain, this is really hard. Make sure you get some clean stop cuts there for it. You could easily kind of accidentally lop off your pom-pom there if you're not careful. Okay, I'm just going to clean up that cut there. All right, so that's looking pretty good. I am going to just make sure I have a nice, good V-cut kind of all the way over to about, almost over to the side of the hat there. Same thing on the back, just extend that out a little bit. Nice deep V-cut separating that hat. And then I'm going to start shaping the top of the hat. So let's start on the side, and I'm just going to kind of flatten off this hard corner that we made before. Okay, so that's just a little bit softer. We already kind of did that on this side underneath the hat. Then on the top, I'm going to kind of carve straight across on both sides until I get down to where that line is, and then I'm going to carve straight across on the line. And what I want to do, if you can, is I want to push kind of in and roll up across the top so that there's this little swoopy kind of shape at the top of the hat. And it just looks like a little bit more of an organic shape, like a hat flopping over on itself, right? Got a little bit of a hard corner there, so I'm going to clean that up. Clean up some of these cuts in here. Okay. Great. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this hard corner off the top. So I'm just going to come near the top here and I'm going to cut it straight off like that. I'm going to do a slight rolling cut in front of it, back over it, and behind it. And again, that's going to just kind of give me this little sense that the hat's falling over across the top. I kind of like that. Okay. Next, I'm going to smooth out some of these hard corners I've got on the front. I'm not going to excessively do it, but just kind of run my knife over to get rid of that hard corner in this one. We already did this one on the side, but the hard corners on each side of that, I could kind of do this on the back also, just to kind of soften up some of those hard corners that we've left. Not too much. I want to see those shapes. I want to see those nice facets, just enough to see that. Okay, then I'm going to do a little V-cut right here at the notch of the hat, just to kind of show like a little fold, like it's folding over on top of itself. Now that I did that, I'm going to extend this one a little bit, just like that. Okay, if you didn't catch that, I'll show you again on the back here, right at this spot where the bottom of the hat is coming up. Got just a little bit of wood in there. Let me clean that up first. I'm going to put a little V-cut right here, putting a stop cut in, tip of my knife going right to the base of that part of the hat, and then come into it from both sides until I pop that out. And again, it's just going to give me that little fold. Looks like the hat is falling over on itself. Okay, great. So that's basically the top of the hat. Now I'm going to start separating the brim, I guess. And to do that, I'm just going to make some stop cuts along these horizontal lines where there. I'm going to make a stop cut, and then I'm going to carve kind of into it down from the top like this. Make that all the way across that horizontal pattern line on the front. Carve into it, repeat the stop cut. Just from, just barely above that, carving in. So I'm going into there like that. Okay. Same thing on the side here. We're going to extend that all the way around the back, which will give me a chance to ask you another question. What do you call a penguin at the North Pole? Really lost. Because again, penguins live at the South Pole. More geography, more jokes. There you go. Okay, so now I've kind of defined the top of the hat brim like that, and that's doing pretty good. Okay. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to kind of shape the outside of the penguin. I'm not going to do the bottom of the hat brim quite yet because it's going to bump into the beak, and I'm going to kind of do that closer to when I do the beak in another step or two here. But I'm going to draw on the pattern lines for how I'm going to start shaping the body. So this is going to be, again, the bottom of the hat on this line here. And I'm going to get to the center of that. And I'm going to draw a line from that to the bottom of this corner here. So the next two sections, but I'm only going halfway across from the hat there. I'm going to be removing this triangle here. Okay, on the bottom section, I'm going to cut this straight in half. So it's coming in at a deeper angle. I'm going to remove that triangle there. Okay, let's repeat that on the back side right there. So I'm going to split this one in half at the bottom of the hat. Draw a line up to there. On the bottom, I'm going to split the bottom in half, or sorry, I'm going to come all the way across the bottom like that. This is the triangle I'm removing. This is the triangle I'm removing. Okay. Let's go ahead and do that on the other side of the penguin. So right here, and then all the way across this corner there. And we're removing this triangle and this triangle. And then the same thing back here. You see these dots, they're not exactly centered. Those are dots that I end up making when I'm drawing my pattern lines on, but they're not centered. So I'm just kind of ignoring them, but if you see them there, that's what they're there for. Okay. So that kind of shows me the rough outside shape of my penguin. You can see that well on this one here. Okay. So let's go ahead and take those out. So I'm going to put a stop cut in right at the bottom of the hat here. Carve this shaded side off right up to that. It's not too deep, so it should be pretty quick. Like that. Flip it around. Cut that bottom side off here. When you get there, you should have that straight line across there. If it's helpful, you could draw that in with your pencil and do that on the other side here. So you'll basically have a square left on the bottom. So let's get rid of this side here under the hat, stop cut under the hat, carve up to it, get rid of that corner, and then on the bottom, carve that triangle off. So we've got that nice outline of the penguin shape going there. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to taper the bottom, kind of like we did on the top of the hat. So I'm going to put a little center mark right on the very bottom of the penguin there. And on this bottom line, I'm going to draw angle connecting across the front from both sides, again parallel to those cuts you just made. Draw in the center line on the sides. This is the exact same cut we made to kind of define and taper towards the top of the hat. And then if I connect those across the top, I'll have another square, we'll call it a diamond shape on the bottom, like that. And I'm going to take off this whole corner right until it's down to that line across the front and the line across the side. Just like we did when shaping the top of the hat, and just like you've seen me do a lot of times in other videos if you watch my other videos. Okay, so there's one, and I'm just going to rotate around and do all four of those. Okay, give me a chance to give you another question, which is, why don't you ever see penguins in Great Britain? It's because they're scared of whales. More geography for you in that one. You didn't know that. You didn't know. You might have thought I'm going to get some penguin jokes, but I bet you weren't guessing you were going to get so many good geography lessons. Wales, Great Britain, yeah. All right, so I've got that great shape kind of tapering towards the bottom of the penguin there. Now, what I'm going to do next is I am going to carve the beak. A lot of times I would prefer to carve the beak later on, but I really need the beak to get in place in order to be able to define the bottom of the hat, carve up the wings and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and carve the beak now, and then we'll just be careful of that. We're going to mark the center of the tip of the beak right there. And if you've seen me carve beaks before, watch my turkey video or my hatching eggs video, exact same thing. So I'm going to mark that center line and then draw an angle going up to either side like that. And down here, we're going to remove this top triangle all the way up to the top. So I'm just going to kind of start carving up to the top of this, like that. I'm going to be really careful because when my knife pops out of there, it's so easy to just run into that hat, and then I'm going to get some unwanted lines. So I'm going to be really careful holding my knife really tight, so I just really gently kind of get to the end of that until I get all the way down to where I'm where I want to be, which is right here, where my knife is coming in right where I want the top of that beak to land, right like that. Okay. Same thing on the bottom. Repeat a few cuts to get there like that. Okay. So that's step 1 for the beak. Step 2 is going to be to cut the corners off, of course. So I'm going to draw a center line on the top and the bottom, and in this case on each side. Okay. And we're going to remove one corner at a time. So let's start with this corner here. I'll shade it in so you can see it. I'm going to remove this corner up here. I'm going to do that by carving flat between this line on the side of the beak and this line up the center of the beak. But first, I'm going to take the tip of my knife, I'm going to slide it behind the beak right there. Okay, that's going to essentially give me a stop cut by doing an undercut there, and I'm just going to start carving that corner off, and when I get down to there, it's going to come out. And I got to be careful not to overcut these, or I'm going to end up with all sorts of messy lines here. Okay, so I'm going to repeat that till I'm sure the knife is getting down to those 2 center lines on each side, and then I'm just going to shave that off in between those until I get that nice angled surface down. And see, I do have some cross cuts there. It's not a big deal. I can kind of come in here and just lightly shave them off. So let's do that on this side next. I'm not going to shave it in, but you got the idea. Again, I'm undercutting the corner there, carving down to it. Should come out easily. If not, I'm just going to repeat that cut until I've taken that whole corner off. If I'm getting some funky lines there, I can kind of carve over them one way or the other to clean that up. Okay, and that's probably the trickiest part, to make clean cuts on this carving. The key is really just to take your time, pay attention to where your knife is on each one of the cuts. Try not to overcut anything. Take more cuts if you need to. Don't force anything here. You don't want to break the beak. And again, if you get lines like this, okay, then I'm just going to kind of come under and shave up to the bottom of the beak. Repeat a stop cut like that. And that's fine. It's going to add a little bit more depth to my beak, but I can get rid of those messy cuts if I want to, like that. Okay. So I'm going to leave that there for now. I can see some little pencil marks or whatever here. I could shave those off at the end if I want to. Okay. But I want to get that beak in place because it's going to help me now as I'm defining the bottom of the hat, which is what I'm going to do next. Okay. If I did that first, then I would be intruding on the area where I want the beak to be, and I want to get the beak established first. So I'm going to establish the bottom of the hat. I'm just going to put, a stop cut at the bottom of the hat, carve right up to it from underneath, just like we did on the sides of the top of the hat. Both sides of the beak here, being careful not to go into the beak. Okay. I'm going to do that across the back. Now I'm going to be careful because of that beak, that when I'm holding it on the back, that I'm not putting my fingers right on the beak, that I'm just paying attention to where that is. That is in my mind as I'm making most of these cuts and how I'm holding it. So if you see me carving across the back or other places, I am trying to pay attention to where the bottom of that is. So I'm just continuing those cuts across the bottom of the hat. Okay, establishing that straight across the back. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of round my hat. So these hard corners on each side, I'm going to take off. Keep doing that. These hard corners here and here, I can keep taking these off like that. Same thing on the side here, across the back like that. And then I'm going to kind of just I don't know, roll along some of these sides, shape it a little bit, kind of in and up like that. Kind of adds a little bit of a texture, not texture, but, you know, fabric-y kind of roll to it. That's probably the technical term. And I've got a hard line on the top of my hat and the bottom of my hat. So I'm going to come here and just kind of lightly cut across those to kind of taper that into the top. What this does for me though is I get this nice kind of ledge here, and when I paint, I like the way the paint kind of falls behind that hat when I do it this way. So I can kind of paint my red or whatever color the hat is going to be, and it'll kind of go behind these cuts that I've made at the top of the hat. It makes painting that border a little bit easier when I do this. So you can do a little bit of cutting both ways to round that off. And we'll do the same thing across the bottom. It might be easier if you want to. You could take the tip of your knife and just run it along the edge like this too. Either one is fine really. But just kind of softening that hard edge we put on the bottom. And then we can really say the hat is done. Okay. All right. Next, I am going to kind of taper the wing area up and soften these hard lines I have here. So first I'm just going to cut these hard lines going across the center in like this, and all I'm really doing is just going down just a little bit to get rid of that hard line going up where the pattern line was. Okay. On the side I'm going to do the same thing, coming across this corner, kind of extending up, and I'm just going to keep shaving to kind of get rid of those lines like that. And so I'm just kind of tapering from the outside in, getting rid of those pattern lines, making a slight taper from the outside of the wing up towards the top of the hat like that, kind of shaping the body, very loosely shaping the body there. Okay. See, this is a little hard, so I'm just going to come in and take that off. And I was just looking to both sides of it, make sure it looks kind of symmetric. If I've rounded something on one side, that I'm rounding it the same on the other side, cleaning up my cuts as I go. Okay, let's do the same thing on the back. A little bit quicker here. Just rounding across the back sides here. So what do you call a penguin with no eye? I'm doing this. Penguin with no eye. A pen gun. I'll let you think about that one for a minute. No eye. All right. Great. So now what we're going to do is carve the wings. And so I'm going to draw these lines where I want to separate the black wings from the white body. And to do that, I'm going to come down, if I say this is the bottom edge of the beak, I'm going to come about a quarter of the way up with a little mark there, and the same thing here, just a little bit in. And then I'm going to have this kind of corner here from where I carved. I'm going to mark where that is on both sides. And I'm going to come just a hair to the right of that. So if I've got this line across the bottom in this corner here, I'm going to come about a quarter of the way here. And I'm going to connect this line down to there. Now the exact angle and everything you do here, you know, you can kind of experiment with that. I want to make sure I've got enough. If you go too far up the beak here, you're not going to have enough black wings to really see. And if you go too far out in the center here, they're not going to come down at enough of an angle. So I'm going just to the right of the bottom of the beak, just to the right of that line from my pattern was there. Now you can just see it from the cut like that. Okay. And I'm going to make a couple big stop cuts. So make a big stop cut right across there with the tip going right up to the base of the beak. And then I'm going to carve into it from the body side here. So I get a nice long chip coming out. So you can use whatever size knife you want for this project really, but it's helpful to have something. This is 1 5/8, and it's long enough to kind of make that entire cut, which is nice. Okay. And I'm just going to extend that a couple times to get a nice deep separation between the body and the wing there. Okay. Let's do that same thing on the other side. Straight across here. Carve straight into it, right to the bottom of where that wing is, or where the beak is, sorry. Okay, like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to extend those across the side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take where that ended here, and I'm going to go halfway down this outside corner right here, and I'm going to connect to that like that. So I'm going to take where it stopped, I'm going to go to halfway across that bottom angle side coming in there. I'm going to connect it like that. And then I'm going to add another stop cut just right along that line and little V cut across it. Now when I do that, I'm going to be overlapping my previous cut. I'm going to get some overlap stuff like this, and so I'm going to have to extend that into the top one to kind of smooth the area between those two cuts like that. Okay. Same thing on this side. Make a stop cut there, kind of a V cut across it. And I might need to extend that going up to kind of connect those two smoothly across there. Okay, so now I've got that nice separation. Okay, on the back, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend this straight across the back, parallel to the bottom of the penguin, the base there, straight across there, and like that. I never did round those hard corners there, so I'll do that first. And then I'm just going to do, little V cuts along those lines on both sides until they meet up in the middle. Not caring a whole lot about detail on the back on this carving. Okay, great. All right, now I need to do some additional shaping for this. I've got these really hard, deep corners, so I'm going to shave this side of the body. Watch the tip of your knife here that it's not hitting into the wing. And I'm just going to shave up there towards the beak like that. Just kind of rounding the body slightly as it's coming up towards there. Let's do that from the other side as well. I feel like I've gotten a little deeper on this side than the first side, so I'm going to kind of try to mimic that on this side. Keep some symmetry there, like that. Okay, and then I've got these hard lines on the edge of the wings, and I'm just going to really lightly shave those off on either side as well. Okay. You can see I've got a little piece of wood, so I'm just going to kind of repeat my cuts down in that corner to get those little slivers out on both sides and keep my cuts nice and clean as I go. Okay. So we're getting close, but I've got this really angular side for the outside of the wings. So I want to shape those up. You can see that on here. I want to kind of shape those up towards the top. So I'm going to kind of come down here to the bottom right before it clips down in here. I'm going to do kind of a push in and a roll up. I don't really want to go much deeper up here than it already is, but I want to kind of push in down here and roll up so I get this little flare out at the bottom. Looks like the wings are just sticking out a little bit more, not quite so static like that. Good. And then I'm going to do the same thing on kind of the hard ridge that was created in front of that and behind it like that. Okay, same thing over here, just kind of a similar cut to get rid of the hard ridge on either side of those. Don't want to over round it, don't want to under round it. And then I'm going to kind of taper the top here just a little bit more and then pinch in, not really shoulders, but kind of like that, so it's tapering right in towards the top. And that just adds a little more definition and shape to the outside, right? A little bit like that. And I think I did a little bit of a cut like this to kind of taper towards the top. Okay, great. So I'm pretty happy with that shape. It's going to be pretty basic. So let's round now the bottom of the body here, and you're going to have two options. So I'm going to take these two hard corners off like this, like that, and then I'm just going to cut in from there straight back like this. And if I want to, I can kind of be done right there. And I actually kind of like this. I think it's a good look. No feet, just done. They'll stand up just fine. I think that looks good. So you can be done right here if you want to be. If you want the little feet, they are kind of cute. I'll show you how to do that. So if you want to keep watching, we can do the feet. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go just a little bit up, like maybe between a 1/8 and a 1/4 inch up from the bottom. I'm going to draw a horizontal line across here, and I'm just going to do whoa, that is not even, is it? I'm going to do a stop cut and some little V cuts across here. And I'm going to try to do it straight even though I didn't draw my line straight. Okay, so get a stop cut here and then just deepen a V cut across that. Okay, extend it out to the side like this. Same thing on this side like this. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carve in the sides here, kind of bring that in so that side of that little foot is in just a little bit. You can kind of look at this from the bottom and see how you're doing on symmetry. Look at it from the top and see how you're doing. So if you've got those cute little feet right there. Okay. When I've got those about what I want, and that's about where I want them. Here's what it looks like from the bottom. Here's what it looks like from the front. Then I'm going to take straight across the middle, put in a little stop cut, and do a little V cut in from both sides to kind of separate the two feet there. Okay. Now I like to also just do a little chip cutout, triangle chip cutout on each of these. So just sticking the tip of my knife and then kind of undercutting there to take these little out, and it just adds a little bit of depth and separation there like that. Okay, like that. Great. And that's really it. It's a pretty simple design. Pretty easy to come together. Simple hat, simple beak, simple body. Well, let me give you a couple painting notes, and then I'll show you how to do the other hat if you want. So a couple painting notes. I paint these without treating the wood at all. I just paint red. I like to use an off-white for the hat, and then a very watered down pale gray for the body. You can experiment with that. I always feel like you need a slightly different shade for the hat and pom-pom as you do the body, or like on a Santa beard. So I try to make those a little bit different. So I've got kind of like a creamy white up here and kind of a pale gray down here to make them a little different. You can experiment with that. Be careful when you're painting with black. I've tried it with dark gray. I don't think it looks as well. The black, you've got to really water down, and it just gets on everything. So if you can paint it black last, that's great. But if you overlap anything, you've really got to clean up the black that you've got there. And then I just use an orange for the beak and feet. Let it dry and then finish it with Howard feed and wax. It gives it that nice sheen. I'm pretty happy with that. You can paint it however you want. If you want to oil it or do whatever else, that's fine. But that's how I do those. Okay. All right. And then I promised you that I would show you how to do this hat if you would prefer this hat, which is kind of cute. So we've got this extra piece here that I kind of prepped for that. So imagine we're back earlier on in the video. We've separated the hat. You've heard one or two bad jokes, but not all of them. And now we're going to continue on and just do this last hat. So what we're going to do is the same thing we did on the side of the Santa style hat. And we're going to, again, cut these top two sections in half at an angle here. You can connect that across the top if you want. And we're going to cut this whole thing off. On the other side, we're going to do the exact same thing. So last time we stopped, and we didn't do the top part of it because we wanted to leave room for the pom-pom to be kind of falling down the side. We're just going to do the exact same thing here. Okay, both sides, same way. And if you've been following along, I'm guessing you can probably even guess what the next step after this one's going to be. But we'll just do that, and we'll do this. Okay. And you guessed it, the next step, we're going to put a point at the center there. We're going to draw across the front face up to that from each side. We're going to draw a center line down the side that we just carved. Same thing on the back, identifying the top, the center of the top in the middle, going up to that from each side across the base and there. And again, it might be helpful to kind of connect those lines across the top. When we're done, we're going to have that nice diamond shape on the top. And we're going to get rid of these corners on each side down between those two lines like that. Okay. Do that on all four corners. Now, if you stuck around this long, you deserve a bonus joke for sticking around to the end and watching the alternative hat build, right? So, why should you not write a book on penguins? Because writing on paper is much easier. You know, they wiggle around and stuff. All right. If nothing else, it was worth hanging around for that, I'm sure. All right. Good. So now what I'm going to do is I need to define where the new pom-pom is going to be, which is going to be this centered pom-pom. So I'm going to go about a half inch down the front of here, and I'm going to include that, or extend that, sorry, to both sides, and just go all the way around like this with a horizontal line, cutting that top section pretty much in half, right? So I'm just going to put in a stop cut and then a nice deep V cut like that. Same thing on the side here, and I'm going to go all the way around doing that. And to be honest, you can probably tell where I'm going with this, right? It's not going to be that difficult. It is actually a little bit quicker and easier than the Santa hat, actually. But we'll do it anyway, so you can see the whole thing. And I do like this alternative hat option. And, you know, you can carve these in January or February. They don't have to be just a Santa hat. It doesn't have to be just a Christmas carving. All right, so I've done that. I've separated that. Okay. Now this is like, you know, way too wide for the pom-pom on top, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of shave straight down the side like this. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of flattening the side like that. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing kind of down the front. And I'm not going to completely get to a perfect octagon on the top, but what I'm going to get to essentially is an octagon with, if I flatten each one of these corners, I'm going to have 8 flat corners, right? So I'm just kind of narrowing it, and I like to keep that idea of the octagon in mind because it will help me make sure I've got the right number of surfaces, that I'm rounding without over rounding or under rounding. And you can see me just coming back on each one of those sides. So I'm getting to that kind of octagon shape on the top, okay? Octagon is one step closer to a circle than a square, right? Great. All right, so now I've got pretty much the size that I want. I've just got to shape it, right? So I'm going to come in on each one of these hard corners and I'm just going to kind of push it straight across. But I'm going to right where that hard corner was, and that's where I'm doing my push across because I want to be kind of even about it. And I want to have those nice flat facets, okay? So I've got about like that. Do the same thing coming in on the bottom. So in this case, I've got to do a little bit of kind of a paring cut in, and then a stop cut across the bottom with the same kind of thing. And I'll have, you know, about 8 surfaces, not about, I should have 8 surfaces on the bottom going in. And that just helps me keep it kind of roughly even and keep track of it, right? So that's pretty good, I like that. Now I'm going to come in on these hard corners and just kind of knock off the hard corners on each side. And then I need to round off the top, because the top shouldn't be flat. So I've knocked off the hard corners on the sides. Now on the top, I'm just going to kind of come up here and go about halfway between the outside and the top and just push really hard in and across the top. I'm pretty much straight across the grain there, but I can push really hard in and across the top and I'll round it off like that. So that's pretty good. You could continue to round that as much as you want. You can make it bigger, smaller, whatever you want. I'm just going to take in the bottom here a little bit. If I do another row of these real short and deep cuts in at the bottom, it'll just make it stand out from the hat a little bit more. Make it a little bit more round overall, right? Okay. So now let's just shape the top of the hat, and then the bottom of it will be the same as the other hat. So let's get those stop cuts in and cut down to them to kind of establish the top of the brim all the way across, like that. I got a little messy there, clean that up. Okay, extend that around to the back. Just putting those stop cuts along those horizontal lines that establish the top of the brim, like that. Okay, and now I've just got these kind of rough looking shapes on the top, so I'm just going to take my knife and roll through each one. So I do kind of like to roll that a little bit, just gives it a little bit more of that textured kind of look, fabric-y kind of look on each one of those hard corners. You can round that off as much or as little as you want. Now I feel like these are a little bit tight there, so I'm just going to really lightly get rid of some of these hard corners right at the top where it's angling up. And that'll help me get a nice round kind of effect. And there we go. Okay, so that's the top of the hat. Okay, I guess that one came out a little smaller than the one on the right. That's fine. You can experiment with the size of that. You can finish off the bottom of the hat now the same way as we did earlier. So, all right, that really is the end. I hope that you enjoy this little project. Super simple, cute, pretty easy and quick to carve. Yeah, so thank you for watching and happy whittling.